right, perfect. We are here at the Green Burial Chronicles with Morgan Oaks. I have a special guest today. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. Steve and Karen Nicola, and they are grief options, educators turned grief guides. So this is going to be a good one. I have been looking forward to someone to help us with the grief world. So before we dive into our questions and what we're going to talk about, tell me a little bit about you two. So, where are you from? We just talked a little bit about that, but let's have the listeners hear a little bit.
You have a couple hours?
Yeah, right. Share with us all these things. But tell us who you are and what you love about what you do. I don't know. Fun facts.
Fun facts.
ahead,
Well, probably one quick fun fact is that we totally love riding our one Goldwing motorcycle. I sit on the back and he drives on the front.
I read that in here.
Yes, and we just took an 8-day trip through Western British Columbia, rode the bike about 7 to 8 hours a day. It was amazing.
It was a good time,
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it was just glorious.
I have a bucket list that you want to go. Let's make a new bucket list that includes this one again.
That's
it was
great.
just so much fun.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you guys are not from here, kind of from here. You've traveled all over doing what you do. So tell us a little bit about how you started, where you come from in your backgrounds, and then how you got to this educators turned grief guides.
Well, Karen and I are both native Californians. We were both born in Southern California, but we were both spent most of our life growing up here in Northern California, and then after we got married, we moved to the Northwest, where I spent most of my time teaching, getting my education and teaching up in Alaska. Yep. And then we came back to California, which the reasons why we came back to California was because this is kind of how we're here today. We were living in Montana when our son was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia. And there was not the medical resources that we needed in the state at that time. And so we ended up out here at Stanford's Children's Hospital. Yep. And that was many years ago, but it still shapes a lot of what we do today.
Well, it did because, every step that you make with a child that's critically ill and goes into remission, and you think, "Oh, good, we've mastered this. It's all good," and then falls out of remission, and the cancer comes back, and it's not good. And now we're left with a life experience that at age 28 we had no preparation for, no idea, and I just leaned heavily into Scripture and trusting that God means what he says when he says he'll heal the brokenhearted. And as that evolved for me, it included a lot of just processing on paper. And it eventually became the book, Comfort for the Day, Living Through the Seasons of Grief. So, but I didn't intend 40 years ago to do the work that we do now. And neither did Steve.
No, we're both teachers by trade.
Yeah, we've got about 40 years of classroom experience combined. And love the classroom, really, really love the classroom. But about 14 years ago, I was just heavily impressed. Karen, the world needs to become your classroom. People need to understand that there is a healthy way to grieve. People need to know that there are better ways to support friends who are grieving. And so just really slowly, little bit by little bit, I started my business. And then Steve joined me 7 years ago.
I love that.
And the more we do this work, the more we realize there's a need for the work we do. There's very few people that really do the kind of work we do. We wish there was more.
Yeah.
Because with grief and with death and dying, particularly, the nature of grief is it covers a lot of different categories. It's not just
Causes.
death.
Yeah.
It can be, we've worked with families who've lost their homes, like up in the Paradise Fire, right here in and locally in the fires here in the Bay Area. So losing a home is extremely traumatic too, but losing a job, losing a relationship, losing your 401k, the list goes on and on.
Abilities and capabilities as people age or they have an accident and now their legs don't work.
And
I mean,
you don't
there's
think
losses.
about that kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
think grief is death and dying.
Yeah.
And so for
So
listeners,
much
I want you to understand, you may not have lost someone yet, but maybe you've gone through a divorce.
Exactly.
I remember my divorce, and you grieve that process. It's a death of a relationship.
It
And
is.
so I think people need to remember, yes, we're Morgan Oaks and we're a cemetery and we lay people to rest, but there are other things that you guys could help with as
Sure.
well.
Totally.
So
Absolutely.
I love that. So tell me, like, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about grief that you find you're constantly like reteaching or telling people?
Well, I think
Yeah.
people have this misconception that grief is just something to get over. And they can think that they can choose not to grieve, and there is no way that you can choose not to grieve. Your body is going to grieve. Now, the misconception is that, well, I can stuff it, I can drug it, I can deny it, I can drink it, I can shop it, I can do all these things to avoid embracing the feeling and the pain. And the culture says avoid pain at all cost. So since our hearts are broken and we hurt, and the culture only supports avoiding it or medicating it, then it's so sad because really the only cure for grief is to grieve and to grieve well.
Yes.
I've often said from a male, actually anybody who owns a vehicle, car, everybody has a maintenance program. You can never check the oil, the air in your tires. There's that person, and there's a person who checks their tires every time they get in the car, and they change the oil every 3,000 miles and are hyper-vigilant about maintaining that car. We cannot choose to not grieve. Everybody will grieve. How they choose, how that pans out in the long run depends about what we put into that grief experience.
So there's a saying that says, sorrow that has no vent in tears may make other organs weep. And so what we put off, what we stuff down, what we sweep under a rug, doesn't go away. It doesn't heal. It doesn't leave us a better person. And so we need to have that sorrow. We need to grieve that loss. We need to feel that pain. And pain and grief are not the enemy here. So once people get through that and go, oh, you're right. Pain really isn't the enemy. And grief is not the enemy. And so I'll step into that. I'll embrace that, and we get healing.
The fear of the unknown is really the biggest thing, because grief, it's often said that grief is our response to a change that we didn't want. And so I was just talking with a client this morning before we came here for this podcast, and this individual said, I just choose to stuff it. I just choose not to think about it, and I said, wow, how's that working for you? He goes, I'm still a very angry man, And so we're realizing that, we have some issues that we need to work through. There's some things that need to be addressed, some apologies that need to be extended, some forgiveness that needs to be received, that are hard to do when a person's not there.
Yeah.
This is a gentleman who's lost 2 wives, and that's a lot to deal with. And so when that happens, we need to be able to know how to step into that space and say, it's okay to feel the pain. If we break a leg, if it would seem silly to wait a few months before we went to the emergency room, right?
Right.
We can start healing right away.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing about grief, is that there's no set time to suddenly start interacting, and dealing with the pain and dealing with the feelings. Those are all acceptable. Those are normal to have after a loved one has died. How we do that is where the work that we do.
It's so interesting. I want to apologize to the listeners because I feel like Steve and Karen are here for me specifically. So you guys can listen to it, but it's definitely, I've been through this. I've been through death with my dad unexpectedly 4 years ago. And then I was hit with a divorce right after, unexpectedly. And so for me, for the listeners, I want you to know, as someone who's been through both, I can tell you I'm a stuffer. And I was someone who would just work my grief out. So I would just show up day in and day out, and I would work day in and day out, and then I'd work at the gym. So I was constantly just avoiding it.
Yeah.
And someone said, what's best is you have to get uncomfortable and you have to release all of that. Right. And most of the world doesn't want to get uncomfortable. Yeah. And so he said, I want you to listen to your dad's favorite songs with headphones in the dark, and you're just going to cry and you're going to scream. And I will tell you that the Stephanie that sits in front of you hates to cry, and I don't like to show emotion because I'm super tough. And so I know for a lot of people, grief is hard because you have to allow some of that stuff that you don't typically show. But lucky for me, it was just me and my dog, and she didn't mind. But once you release that, because then I was scared to death, well, then I'm going to get sick with something because I'm stuffing it and worrying and stressing. And so what you said about other organs, like that was also something I was worried about. So I loved this question because number 5 says, you work not only with grieving people, but also friends who mean well and they want to help. What do supporters get wrong, even when their heart's in the right place? Because prior to me losing someone, I didn't know what to ask, how to help. And I think then people just like don't help.
That's right.
And then the person that's grieving is like, well, no one
Isolated.
cared about me. No one checked on me. And it's because they don't know what to do. So talk to me about that too.
You're so right.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to avoid pain if we are even the supportive friend, because you're hurting. I don't want to hurt.
Yeah.
So I'll just step back. And as they step back, then that leaves the brokenhearted person in isolation, which is one of the worst things that can happen to us in our grief, is to be isolated. So I think, again, the supportive friend needs to know that their uncomfortableness is okay too. And that pain, just think about that being magnified by 100 is what the other person has. So let's just stop feeling afraid of pain and uncomfortableness and go, wow, tell me, Stephanie, what's it like for you right now? It really matters to me. All we need to do is just show that we genuinely care. I don't have the answers, and I'm not here to fix it. I think that's what a lot of people will raise their hands in our seminars, that they're the fixer and they don't know how to fix your pain. So they'll come and try to do that, which then really makes it harder for you, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's true. Everybody wants to fix it, and when you can't. And the question I always got is, how are you? And I would be like, I didn't get angry because I knew that was what people asked. I find myself sometimes even at the cemetery saying, how are you? And then I always say, you know what, that's the worst question people ask. But it's just, I want to know, how are you?
But the problem we found, and most people will simply say, I'm fine, right?
Yes.
I'm fine, I'm fine. Why did they do that? Because what we have found, and we found it ourselves personally, is that many people would say it just as a throwaway term. Like, let's do lunch. Hey, let's get together sometime, let's do lunch. And it's never going to happen, right? So when someone says, how are you? You can sense, you have a little bit of a radar that says, these people really don't want my answer. They're just filling dead airspace with sound is really what they're doing. And so it's easier after a while just to say, I'm fine. If you find somebody who says, how are you doing today? And I really want to know how your grief is today. And then they wait for an answer, and they're not just looking around or moving on. You go, well, this person probably really wants to know about my heart. And you feel safe so the idea is we as the supportive friends and family really need to be a safe place for people to have whatever emotions they choose to have. And like Karen said, it's not a matter of fixing their pain. Again, it's like if you had a broken leg and someone says, well, we're just going to stuff this thing full of morphine, and let's go out and run a marathon. We generally, most people I want you to feel better so I don't feel awkward, you see, rather than saying you just need to feel whatever you need to feel, and I'm okay with that. And we have found, it was interesting, we had a friend who was well ingrained in their community, she and her husband. I mean, well-known, even well-known in their state. They had, they were movers and shakers. And not long after the husband died from cancer, we happened to be in her city on business. And we said, let's just stop in and see her. But I hope we aren't interrupted. She's probably got a ton of people there. And we came by the house. We said, we hope. And there was one person had just stopped by. We said, well, I bet you're just getting so many people coming and going. She goes, no, I haven't had anybody come by for a long time. And so we assume that people are going to have all these friends interacting. And the biggest thing is you'll see a lot, particularly if it's a well-known personality, please give us room to grieve, give us some space. That works up to a point. But if you were to talk to most grievers, we loved having someone call, just tell me about your dad. You know, if they were to call you and say, I'm so sorry to hear that your dad has died. Tell me a little bit about what was his name and what was his favorite food. What's a favorite memory? You would be all over that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You see, and there's no I mean, we had people asking us those questions 2 or 3 days after our son died. It felt so cared for. And we never, people say, well, what if we say, you know, our son's name was Dawson? We still, all these years later, love hearing his name sounded. You couldn't make me feel any worse by mentioning his name or bringing it up.
Sure.
And so a supportive friend or a family member actually is doing better by simply sitting there and crying with you. No words, just to sit there and just be. The firemen and policemen have figured that out a long time ago. It's just the power
Of presence.
of presence. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I told my friends after, you know, I got through some of it, some of them were really good, was I just wanted someone to say, hey, thinking about you.
There
Hey,
you go.
I just wanted someone to say they were checking on
Acknowledge.
me. And, you know, some of my girlfriends would call and be like, hey, did you see the latest episode of whatever? Just to like, I just wanted someone to call.
Yeah.
And I didn't need you to ask how I was. One of my good friends said, tell me about your dad. What was your favorite memory? And it was cool because it was like he had passed, and my biggest fear was that all the memories of him were going to
Would
go
away, exactly. Yeah.
And I loved that someone said, tell me about him. Even to this day, some of my closest friends would be like, hey, tell me about that picture. What'd you guys do there? What'd you love about that? And so it's not, you couldn't have asked me a wrong question. I just wanted someone to show me they cared.
Conversely, another gift that a friend can give someone like yourself is, I remember a really funny thing that your dad did, or your dad did this really cool thing that nobody else knew, but I knew about it, and they share that thing with you. And to keep sharing a memory about the loved one who has died, the friend who died, or the parent, or whoever, when people all these years later still, we have very few people that remember our son because it was so many years ago.
Yeah.
But for example, we were down in Texas doing a seminar down there, and we were at a university, and one of the teachers in the School of Nursing used to be one of my 6th graders up in Alaska, who remembers when our son was born.
Yeah.
And remembers him toddling around the school that I taught at, because she was and now she's in her 50s, and I'm dating myself, but anyway, it was so fun to see her. She says, I remember him. I remember Dawson. And we have very few people that we know that remember him. And so a gift is to bring a memory to the table.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. I love that. You're giving me ideas for the cemetery too, of like things that are important, because I really want to create a space where not only do I know you, but I know your story. So like I can walk around that cemetery and tell you almost a story about everybody there, but like obviously that goes away at some point. So I'm like, oh, that's a good question. Okay, so you mentioned one of the most effective free tools is grieving well, right? We want to learn how to grieve well. We've talked a little bit about that. Why is that so powerful, and what does that even look like to grieve well?
Well, grieving well means that we do embrace the pain, that we don't run from it, we don't deny it, and that we learn how to do what we call grief work.
Okay.
And one of the best ways to accomplish our grief work is to be intentional about our grief, not to sweep it under the rug, and to put it out on the table, and to say, okay, today I am, like yesterday I was just working with a client, planning and preparing for the anniversary of my mother's death. And what's that going to look like, and how's that going to happen? And so that intentionality. But in addition to that, that's just one example of how to be intentional. But there's a wonderful process of intentionality that we call PYSOPing, and that's the tool.
Okay.
And PYSOPing is a word that I've made up, and I'm hoping will be in the dictionary by the time I die. And it's spelled PYSOP. AI gets it wrong every time. But PYSOP is PYSOP, and it is an acronym for Put Your Stuff on Paper. PYSOP. Put your stuff on paper. So we tell our clients, stop writing, stop journaling. Do not do something that has an academic overtone, undertone, everything about writing takes us right back into an academic setting. Just saying the word, we automatically think of an English teacher or alphabet letters on a board or a research paper for our last, doctoral dissertation or whatever it might be. But that all requires keeping the rules of the written language. It all requires organization. It all requires, a beginning, middle, and an end. But my grief doesn't look like that. Nobody's grief does. Our grief is really messy and chaotic and unpredictable and random. And so how can I take this emotional experience of chaos and randomness and try to force it through an organizational experience? It can't. And so our clients just would look at us like, well, I'm not writing.
Yeah.
I'm not journaling. And I'm going, yeah, please do. And then I realized, no, don't do. Don't do that thing because they don't work. They don't fit.
Yeah.
And so PYSOPing is we just kick out all the rules. There's no handwriting here. There's no spelling. There's no punctuation. There's nothing of that has to do with the written language.
Okay.
Instead, you just put your stuff on paper. And everybody's got stuff. We've all got stuff. And it can come out totally messy and random. It should reflect the emotional chaos that we have, the unpredictability. We might begin to put something on paper, and all of a sudden it takes a left turn, and we're off onto something else that we had not planned for. But it released what you were saying. It released that grief. It released that pain. It released the guilt, the regret, the shame, the woulda, coulda, shoulda's, and it gets put out on paper.
See, society, we're in a very linear society. We like, A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, from A to Z. We live a very linear life, Grief doesn't recognize that. And so for ourselves in our work, we don't ascribe to the 5 steps of grief that everybody hears about, the 5 stages of grief that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, opinion many years ago. What she observed was actually true. She was observing people who had died, who had been given a death prognosis. You have terminal cancer or whatever, you're going to be gone in the next year or two. But that was good for people who knew they were going to die.
Right.
You would go then through shock, denial, anger, bargaining, and then acceptance, you see. But after you died, the people you left behind, were they going to go through those 5 steps? They might have some of those. Their grief is going to be all over the map, and it's going to be circular. It will come back. It'll come back. I remember talking with Dr. Ross's son, who still runs her foundation down in Central California, that says, my mother never intended for what she observed she observed thousands of dying people, and they kind of fell into this 5 stages. There's more. There can be up to 30, 40 stages if you really want to, but the initial 5 stages are pretty well known. Everybody gets that in Psych 101. But he said that's never what she had in mind. She was talking about people who knew they were going to die. But the people who are left behind, there's no roadmap particularly to say how it's going to be, how it works for you, for Karen, for me, or for anybody else. It's different for every person. And how long it lasts or what path it takes, we have to be willing to be patient and let that person find their way through it. Obviously with help, it helps to do that. But in terms of say, well, if a person says I was angry today and I think I addressed it, and then a month from now they're just really angry again because their loved one died, they're going, well, wait a minute, I thought I checked that one off a month ago. It doesn't work that way. Right. And so once our clients realize that, big deep breath, it makes suddenly I'm free to grieve in my own skin. And that's the thing I think we like to help people, the listeners, our people who are watching this know that we need to be able to grieve in our own skin, and we need to allow others to grieve in their own skin too, in their own time and in their own way.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. The grieving, I thought it was going to look a certain way, right? Dad's going to pass. I'm going to have a couple of weeks where I'm really sad, and then we'll start to progress. And I remember, he passed, it was his birthday, Father's Day, and his death day. So all three land in the same month within 2 weeks or something crazy, right? And so I thought, okay, what's the next big thing that I have? Well, the holidays, right? Well, then there was like 4th of July, which is just a random holiday, but we always did something. He was around. It was Easter. It was Halloween. And I would tell my friends, this is so weird. Like, this is dumb that I'm sad, but it was because he just wasn't around.
It wasn't dumb, though. It was just simply you're going through the normal process
But I
of
didn't
missing.
expect
Yeah.
that.
Right,
And so
right.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. One of the craziest things that I think people that are listening is it's okay. Certain things are going to pop up at really random times. I took my first trip and I got on the airplane and I got off, and the minute the wheels hit the ground, tears came. And it's because every time I would land for a work trip or any trip, I would say, "Hey, Dad, I made it." At 40 something years old, I would say that, and he wasn't there to text. And I was with my mother-in-law at the time, and she said, "Just text him, because he's not going to get it, but he sees you." And so it was stuff like that where it was like, okay, I didn't know that was going to feel like that. And there was, 2 years down the road, for listeners, I thought I would be done. There's even still moments now where I get emotional because I'm like, and I want people to know, and you guys probably teach people this, but from someone who's been through it too, there's probably going to be 10 years down the road where I'm going to think of him, and new things are going to come up. And it's okay to be sad and miss that person. It doesn't just stop and then you say, okay, now I can be okay.
Yeah.
Okay, since we're almost done, let's see. We're going to go back in. So the next thing I want to know as we get back in here, what is one thing you wish every grieving person knew?
Wow.
I don't know if I can make it one thing. I like the question, but there's often so many nuances. So if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind. I would like every grieving person to know that they can heal in a really healthy, meaningful way that allows them to still love their missing person and embrace life. That they can know that there is hope for fully living life and healing from the very thing that life was never meant to give us, which was death and separation. But there is healing for that. So I think that's what I would like grieving people to know, is that it's not either or, it's and. We really truly honor our loved ones the most by intentionally doing our grief work and healing and becoming a whole person again.
True.
There are people who say, well, I'm never going to get over this. I'm never going to get over this. And I smile inside and I say, well, if you want to keep that attitude, that will probably be the result. But if you'd like to work with a grief coach that knows how to walk alongside you in a healthy way to guide you, it's not, and the goal is not to get over.
Sure.
The goal is to still love, still remember, still honor, and embrace the new. And it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't.
No, but it's
But
there.
embracing the new does not deny the love. See, so many people hang on to the. I've had men tell me over and over. I see it on the internet with a group that I'm on Facebook, and these grieving fathers are saying, I don't want to get over it because the pain tells me how much I miss my son or daughter, right?
Yeah.
That died. And I get that at one level, but is that really honoring their memory? Is that really honoring your life? And many of these, many people, we have other people who are still yet alive.
Yeah.
And they deserve our best.
That's, yes.
You see, and when we curl up in a ball and just go away all the time because of our grief for the person who's died, we find that a lot of the kids, the living kids, are going, well, what am I, chopped liver?
Yep.
And the parent is, I get that at some level, you see, but to just constantly hang on to the pain while you still have living people who are still deserving of your love and need your love, and you have enough love to go around. So you can heal, as Karen said, and still love your missing loved one. you see. They're not in opposition to each other. And if that was, I'm right along with Karen. If I could leave you with anything, it would be that you can heal and still miss and love your missing loved one, your loved one who's died. Those are not counterproductive. It lets us live life to the fullest then. And we don't know exactly what, people say, we should never be telling children, well, your mommy wouldn't want you to cry, or your dad wouldn't want you to be this. We don't know what they'd want.
Right.
But we do know that there's nothing wrong with living our best life in spite of the death of our loved one. And that we honor them best by living well.
Wow. As the kids would say, that's a mic drop.
Yeah.
I think living your best life, and that's something I had to do, was look at it as my dad would want me to excel, not to sit and be sad. And someone once said to me, they said, you're not going to get over it, and it's not going to go away. It's just going to be different. Every year something is going to be different, right? And so, everything is different, but I'm not over it. Yeah. I'll never be over my dad dying. I know it happens, and that's the circle of life, but I'm never going to be like, my Dave Brow who? Like that. That's silly. Right. So I think that Steve, that was beautifully put. I think that living well in honor of my dad, I think of that and it's like, wow, you're right. I'm so glad I did all the work so that my dad could watch me above and be like, I'm so proud. Okay, so as we close up here, how can people find you? What do you offer them? What do you guys have?
Well,
we do have some videos, so you could show your books for the video people. Okay. But also, how do they find you?
Well, we have a book that was written many years ago, and it's still as current today as it was when it was first written. We're in our third or fourth printing. And this is Comfort for the Day, Living Through the Seasons of Grief. And it's a grief recovery book. We used to call it a grief recovery journal, but we've changed that over the years.
No more journaling. PYSOPing instead.
In fact, there's a whole chapter.
We have a whole new section in there about PYSOPing.
A whole chapter on don't write, PYSOP instead.
Okay.
But this is a book that is designed to have people be able to respond with their grief on line pages. This is not our story. This is going to become their story. The more and more they emote on paper, the more it'll become their story. And they can go back and say, oh, I've made some progress. I'm healing,
Great.
And so there's, it's written from a Christian context.
Great.
Not everybody comes from that context, but what we share with them is that the values and the issues that are suggested here are universal. In other words, loving well, loving your neighbor as yourself. Those are things that are biblical, but they're also universal.
Sure.
And we use people from all different backgrounds for our work that we do too. We just find that this works effective for a great number of people. And so we're not here to force a particular way of thinking or lifestyle for someone, but we find it works well for those who would choose to engage in it. And so there's a biblical text here. There's just a little bit of writing here that Karen has done to expand upon that, and then just some jump off lines, because a grieving person doesn't have the bandwidth to really think about, well, how should I respond to this?
Yep.
So there's a couple of questions here, and then they can respond here on the line pages. There's about 42 of these, and this book will talk to them about their emotional grief, their physical grief, and then responding on paper, the grief that they have in their heart. And there's lots of more pages in the back that will help them understand, where if they have more things they want to talk about, they've got pages here that'll help them do that. Pages with put poetry, pictures. It becomes their book. Yeah. This is not a coffee table book. We hope it gets ragged and dog-eared, and it's not a start to finish book either.
Yeah.
It's just one that, because what works today may not, you may see a topic that works for you for another time. Okay. So we have it in English, and then recently we just had it translated into Spanish. So Consuelo para el Dia is for our Spanish-speaking friends that we found there was not a lot written for the Spanish-speaking community. Yeah. And so this came out just a year or two ago, and we're getting good responses that it speaks well. This is not a word-for-word translation from our book. It is a thought-for-thought translation, translated by Hispanic individuals who had losses in their own lives, and so it was translated through the eyes of a grieving Hispanic individual. And so it gets it. And people who are Hispanic people who are using it, our friends and customers and clients that are using it, so that they get it. This works.
That's great.
So
Very cool.
we're happy to have those there. We also have comfort cards.
Okay.
Where people, if you're a person that's wanting to support a person in grief, you can go to our website, which is comfortfortheday.com. And that there you'll see in our store there cards of comfort. These are not Hallmark cards. Nothing rhymes. But it speaks specifically to the loss, whether it's a parent, a child, a spouse, or just a journal one for a friend. They'll find that there. And the cost is about the same as a Hallmark card, but it's much more personalized. And people say, this is really, really nice. It's not one you'll read and throw in the wastebasket.
Very cool. Are you guys on social media?
We are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. LinkedIn, Facebook, and the website. That's probably it.
Okay.
I don't attend to our Instagram page very well, so
Okay.
I'll omit that one.
That's okay. Okay, well, thank you guys. Again, this was incredible, super helpful. At Morgan Oaks, I'm going to make these available to our people, so I'd love to have those. And obviously your contact information and everything. So if you're a listener and you're like, oh, I didn't catch any of that, I have no way to gather that information, you can call me and I will relay it. But I have met with these two previously, and you guys, if I was going to recommend someone, I would recommend you,
Oh, thank you.
especially
Thank
after
you.
listening today.
Yeah.
So helpful. And being through what I've been through, I can't say enough for the listeners. Find someone to help you through the process. Even if you want to fight it, don't. Because I promise you the other side is so much better. So everyone listening, thank you for listening. Walk gently, remember deeply, and celebrate the legacy of life. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us,
You're
Stephanie.
welcome.